Hey everybody, it's Todd on the road with Copley Global Solutions, and welcome back to our video section of the book where we expand on the chapter and the workbook that you just finished reading. We also bring on some people to include friends and colleagues, and of course, some of my heroes that I believe specifically embody the theme or the promise that you just finished reading. Before we start, again, thanks for being part of the book and joining us in Outrunning the Light and embarking on your own journey of discovery and promise. And congratulations on making your way almost through the end of the book, through promise number 5, chapter 5. I practice leadership through accountability. Now, we're at the final promise, bringing together the components of the first 4 chapters and getting them into perspective where you can begin to hold yourself accountable and become a leader of your own life, the captain of your own life. The question is, you've got the tools, you've got the philosophy now, but are you willing to act? Or will you let fear suppress your grandest of dreams? It is time to pose those questions. And with that spirit in mind, I am so happy to bring on my guest for the discussion, someone that has literally faced fear and said yes to exploration and discovery. The person that I'm introducing today, if you could come on, there he is. The person I'm introducing today is Colonel Mark Vandehey. And Mark, it's great to see you again. How are you?
Really good, Todd. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. We'll catch up here in a minute here, but I wanted to continue the introduction here. Mark and I, we met as young lieutenants in the Special Operations Airborne Assignment in Italy. And from there, Mark's military career was totally exemplary. And in 2006, he was asked to join the NASA space program. And since that time, he's completed not one, but 2 space missions to the International Space Station. And he held for a period of time the record for the longest continuous space flight for an American at 355 days. I'm really happy to see you again, Mark. When's the last time we saw each other?
I would have been, I'm not sure what year it was. Time flies. It was in Asheville, I believe.
That's right. It was. We were at the U.S. Army Airborne Battalion Combat Team reunion in Asheville. Well, my company actually produced that. We produced that event and put it together.
It was great.
But that's the last time that we got to see you. And you're getting ready, a big thing coming into your life. You're getting ready to retire, aren't you?
Uh,
Or step
in
away, I
whatever,
should say.
yeah, yeah, we'll see how that works out. I'm not sure what the next chapter is going to be or what the timing for that's going to be yet.
Yeah, I know whatever it is, it's going to be exciting and full of adventure. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to uh I'm going to jump right in on this. And when you're sitting back and trying to put together some questions around leadership and accountability, not to use a cliche, but Mark Vandehey's picture is kind of in the dictionary under leadership there. And we talked last week, and you had mentioned the terms because with regards to travel, you had mentioned these terms, earthlings and atmospherings. Can you explain that for your readers, what you mean?
Yeah, I think our sense of accountability for the status of the planet is sometimes we can put it aside by thinking that the planet is so big that we don't have to really worry about it. But the Earth is really big. Having lived outside of the atmosphere and been able to look at the Earth, it's really, really clear to me that the atmosphere is extremely thin compared to the size of the Earth. It's like a varnish on a rock or a puddle in a parking lot. So I like to say that we're not so much Earthlings, we're atmospherelings. Every piece of, for most of us that don't get to fly to space, every day of our life is in this atmosphere, and it's only in this thin band on the surface of the Earth that we live. So it's really essential. And I want people to have that sense about the thinness of the atmosphere and how important it is for us to have some more of a stronger sense of accountability for how we treat it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you said that last week, it was I was going, wow, it's the first time I've ever heard that concept. And it's probably because, well, 99.9% of the people, on the planet have never been in your position. It's amazing. Um, in chapter 5, I talk about this expression or this concept. It's called fear and the power to act. And to set the context here, I cannot even imagine sitting in that rocket ship 10 seconds before blast off, facing what I'm sure is fear and knowing that your life is in the hands of so many other people, yet you go ahead. You don't question it. It's evident that, obviously you believe in the mission. Can you talk about how you're working through that fear and moving ahead for our readers that are making daily decisions that are scary every day?
Yeah, I think fear is really important because it gets us to pay attention. But you've got to set aside fear when you don't have any control over some aspects of it. For example, when we were jumping out of airplanes, there was a lot of, we didn't get to meet the person that packed our parachute. So us jumping out of the airplane, we had to put a lot of faith into the fact that the system was going to work. And we had lots of reason to believe it would work. Very much the same case with me and a rocket. I wasn't afraid of the rocket messing up. I was afraid of me making a mistake
Right.
after all of the effort and investment of time and money people have put into preparing me for this moment. I was afraid of that, but there was no real fear for my safety on the moment of launch. I can tell you though, my scariest moment in space was on a spacewalk. It was my third spacewalk. It was the first time I was the person that opened the hatch. There's several moments of a lot of fear. One of them, when you first open the hatch, if you are the person that opens the hatch, you have a face full of the earth and your peripheral vision is so bad, that's all you have. All of our training for spacewalks, even having done a couple spacewalks before then, in the foreground was always a space station. So my comfort blanket, what I'd been trained for underwater, was that mock up of the space station or the space station really in space and the earth maybe in the background if I was really doing a spacewalk. But that third one, I opened the hatch and there was just nothing but the earth, 240 miles below me. And a lot of my instinctual response was prevent yourself from failing. And I talked to the doctors afterwards. They told me my heart rate shot to 190. They thought that was a computer anomaly, but I remember how I felt, and I didn't think that was a computer anomaly. So, in the same point that's going on, um, the system on your chest, the computer that runs the spacesuit, all the life support systems, sits on your chest, and there's a display on the top of it. Well, the display, one of the things you have to check is that the display works right. Well, I did that check, and the display showed a bunch of gobbledygook. It just didn't make any sense. I reported that to the ground. They told me we had to do a warm restart of the suit. Didn't really know what that meant, but I figured just like always, the ground will tell me what to do. I'll follow the instructions. And I got told, turn off the fan. So you turn off the fan, that is what blows the air past your face. It's also what provides the cooling in the suit. As soon as I turned off the fan, I immediately started overheating and was fighting panic from overheating with that view of the Earth 240 miles below me. So I couldn't, like, I was appalled at how long it was taking them to give me the next step. They gave me the next step. They didn't even finish saying the word switch power to off. They didn't finish saying off and power is off. And then I was waiting for the next step and I realized they can't tell me the next step. I just turned the whole suit off. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. They had told me this litany of things that I was supposed to remember. And I just kind of was like, yeah, whatever, whatever. And then here I am with I'm overheating. I'm in a vacuum. I don't know what my status is with oxygen going past my face. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do next. I figured, well, this is like rebooting a computer. So I'm going to assume that I turn the power back on. So I turned the power back on. And then they told me, and I reported that, they told me turn the fan back to on. Turns out if I just turn the fan back to on, everything's fine. But my visor had already fogged up. I couldn't see. I'm quite confident now that I was trying to switch that switch in the wrong direction. And I was constantly trying to turn it into the position it already was, which was off. So I'm not having success. I'm fighting panic. Carbon dioxide is building up in front of my face. And I was flailing around. My shoulders getting more and more tired because to get to the switch, it's a very uncomfortable position in that suit. I realized I'm not on a path to success. Fortunately, I had a buddy right next to me, and I said to that person, "Hey, can you get to my fan switch?" And they said, "Stop jiggling," because I was flailing around a lot
Right.
and grunting.
Right.
And he did it for me, and then everything was fine. And we went on with our 7 hour and
Yeah.
40-minute spacewalk after that. That
That's
was by far my
incredible.
scariest moment.
That is incredible. Taking that now here again, like I said, 99.9% of our readers are never going to experience that. But equate what we do have is a bunch of readers that are looking, they finished the book and they've got a couple things in front of them. They've got, a couple dreams that, they've kind of maybe resurfaced a little bit having read the book there, but they're at that pivot point between, okay, do I do it? Do I act? Like I said, fear and the power to act, and how it completely inhibits some people. Put yourself in that position of, the person down the road that's been a hairdresser and is saying, "Hey, I've been wanting to go out on my own." How do you work through that fear and get the power to act? You have to think about things for sure, but in your mind, how do you work through it?
I think you think of the worst case outcome
Yeah,
and figure out how you're going to deal with that, and then recognize that, you know what, I have a way to deal with that situation. I don't want that to happen. And then, of course, you try really hard to avoid that outcome. But
right.
you still have to act when there's a chance that it's not going to work. And I
Yeah,
think humans thrive better when periodically we put ourselves in those situations where we're going to try really hard, but we don't know for sure that we have the ability to do this mentally, physically, psychologically, whatever it is.
yeah. Absolutely. And all of the promise, it's a circuitous route because I spoke with a good friend of mine. We've got chapter number 3, which is the accepting risk and igniting learning. And you're right, that fear can inhibit you, but that's where we live. And that's where, our radar goes up. That's where we grow. We talk about the concentric circles, the comfort zone and the learning zone and the stress zone. Like you just mentioned, that situation with the spacesuit. I imagine, that's going way out of the learning zone there and way into the
That was,
stress
yeah,
zone for
I
sure.
was not my best at that moment.
No, no. The there's a story in chapter 5, and it's called "I Never Thought I Would See It." And it's a story about my partner Samantha and her scenario in Venice, Italy. And she had done this whole thing. I'm not going to rehash the story for the readers who just read it, but can you share with us your emotions and your thoughts as you sit above the space station, 240 miles above Earth, watching the world go by? It kind of gives me the goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah, I studied space physics, so I'd seen lots of pictures of planets and the Earth included. I never thought I'd be looking at the Earth from outside the atmosphere like that. Uh, it's hard to get my head wrapped around it. The first 24 hours after I got to the space station on my first flight was time off, but I spent the first 90 minutes looking out the window, even though I was supposed to be going to sleep. I just could not turn away from that view. We go around the Earth once every 90 minutes. So I stared at the Earth for the whole first time around. I
Hmm.
was at first looking at the sunlit side of the Earth. I was really struck at how isolated the Earth looked from anything else because with your eyes adjusted to the sunlit Earth, the background of the Earth is inky black, like literally like liquid black ink, the definition of nothingness. So it makes the Earth look completely isolated. My second flight, I really enjoyed meditating for 20 minutes every day before everybody else got up. I turned off all the lights inside the space station and I would look at the Earth sometimes at night and my eyes would adjust to the darkness. And I realized that there's so much stuff in the universe beyond the Earth without a lot of atmosphere to in some ways spoil the view a little bit. It it's hard to find a place without something else in it as you look, but it's all really, really far away. But there's like shades of gray and white and a few places that it looks inky black like I thought at first.
Yeah, that's it. And I've seen some of the pictures too. And I know when we were in Asheville, you gave us a little presentation down there for all of the soldiers and the men that had come to the reunion. It was just amazing there. Um,
Do you mind if I add something else to that?
Not at all. Go ahead.
I think the biggest challenge of seeing the Earth from that distance is getting your head wrapped around the scale. If you've ever Yeah, you've been to churches in Europe where you go into this big interior space and it's hard to get your head wrapped around the volume of space inside that big cathedral. Then you go to some place like the Grand Canyon, and again, it's hard to get yourself to understand the scale of things you're seeing. Well, the same thing happens when you're in space. For me, looking at the Earth, those were places that were familiar to me. And so seeing the boot of Italy, but both coasts at the same time, it was really weird for me later to be in a train in Italy and not be able to see any coast or even the mountains in the middle and try to
Right.
understand how tiny and insignificant I felt was probably an overwhelming emotion too, seeing just getting a little bit of sense of scale for how big everything else is but us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what's allowed you to do that is going back to, your career is being able to step outside of your comfort zone and take you into those situations where it's just nothing but learning. And it's fascinating to hear. Like I said, I love hearing those stories and seeing some of the pictures up there. Um, I've got one last question for you. And we didn't talk about this. You kind of sent me a note back here, but one of the tools that we present in chapter 5 in the workbook there, it's a tool called the grippy planning model. It's also used as an evaluation model. And I remember you sent me a note saying you were kind of intrigued by that. But it's based around goals and roles and the process and the interpersonal side of this. And one thing that I found out as a coach in my experience is when we sit down with people, one of the most important things, rather than talking about, hey, here's how I'm going to do this, or rather talking about here's the people that are going to be involved in this. It's how much people sit down before beginning an endeavor and saying, these are my goals. And I'm going to evaluate myself and hold myself accountable based on these goals. And you may have heard of the expression there's no such thing as failure, there's only results, and there's only implications on that. Are you a goal setting guy, or I can't imagine you're not, but are you a goal setting guy, and how do you process that in your, let's say, in your professional life as well as your personal life?
Yeah, I'm a daily goal setter guy. I'm not so sure. I'm not the guy with a 5-year list of goals. I definitely wake up in the morning and I like structure. So I'll spend 5 minutes every day uh, after I've brainstormed on things I'd like to get done, putting them in an order that makes sense.
Yeah,
Just because I want to step through my day and know that I'm doing the most important things first. And
yeah.
that's a constant thing that I will try to improve on. Time management is always something that I'm looking for ways to do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've had this big green machine and this big NASA machine behind you now for how many years have you been serving the country?
Yeah, 35 years in the federal government.
35 years. You've had them kind of pushing you, kind of setting the goals. For example, when
True.
you're getting ready to step off that bridge and into your own life. What about with the family?
With the family, I think our goal is just comfortably go into retirement at some point. Get the kids,
Yeah,
make sure the kids are well taken care of. We got a foster child that the next big thing for her is gonna graduate high school and then go to college, get her through college, and then spend quality time with those relationships. That's the big goal for me after all this stuff.
yeah. Well, that's a big win for anybody, and certainly anybody looking to work on their leadership and accountability. Everybody, I want to, give my own big hand to Mark, a great friend of mine and just a fantastic human being. It just fascinating to know. I could sit and listen to stories about his adventures all day long. Mark, thanks for joining us today. We wish you the absolute best as you step away and get ready for retirement, and say hi to Jules and the rest of the family for us.
Will do. Thanks for the conversation, Todd. I really
Oh,
appreciate the invite.
all right, Mark, take care. Bye bye now.